Hey guys, welcome to another Bob Ross and the Art of Guitar series video. In today's video, I'm going to discuss something that I find gets, kind of argued about and debated about, and people get pretty heated about the topic at times too. And also people get a little, I think, bogged down by the topic as well. And that would be the topic of modes and discussing when you're improvising the chord scale relationship. And what I'm going to do is in this video just briefly touch on my approach, at least the way that I'm seeing it. And I'm not the only one, there's others that share a very similar view. So what I want to talk about is a very common chord progression in style jazz, which is the 2-5-1, as an underpinning to this topic. That way we have something really basic that most of us are familiar with and we can relate to. So when we think about a 2-5-1, we think about the chords, and we're going to think in the key of C. Usually you have the D minor 7, the G7 going to a C, right? That's C major. Now, one of the common ways that people have been taught to look at this is by using modes. So you might look at it as a D Dorian, a G Mixolydian, and a C major or a C Ionian, right? So if I do it like that, if I think about it like that, starting on D, I would have D to D with all the natural notes. And then G to G with all the natural notes. And then C to C with all the natural notes, of course, because we're in the key of C. Right? This is all being pulled from the key of C. Well, I mean, people have had success with that, and they look at it like that and don't seem to have too big of an issue. On the other hand, some people do. And for me, that was something that never really clicked for me. I always felt like it was a little bit much to think about. So for me, what I have come to do in my practice and when I take a look at tunes is to break things down into the most basic elements and look at the bigger picture, tonal centers or key centers. And when I see a chord progression such as a 2-5-1, especially looking at it in the key of C like we are now, I see that all as being in C. I don't see D Dorian, G Mixolydian, and C Ionian as three separate entities. I see it as one big picture. Now, the issue that many people bring up in discussion is, well, if you see it all in the key of C, then how are you really going to play the changes? How are you going to get the sound of the chord progression? Well, here's the thing. If I took C major and I just played a C major scale, well, the problem is, if I had a 2-5-1 behind me, and all I'm doing is playing this, or even without anything behind me, actually, let's look at it like that. Nothing's behind me. Can you tell what key I'm in by doing that? You'd think, well, maybe he's in C, but do you know the chords that are going on behind me when I'm doing that? Chances are not. Probably very, high of a chance that you're going to know what I'm doing. So it sounds just kind of like randomness, Maybe I'm doing something in a drone, and playing over top of that, like some sort of a static harmony. Well, in order to address the issue of, well, how do you get the changes to sound? That's where practicing chord tones becomes very important. You can also see that as practicing your arpeggios. So when you have a D minor 7 chord if you think about the notes that are available, and I'm going to build it very basic and just think about, in the case of a D minor 7, D, F, A, and C, the G would be the G, the B, the D, and the F, and the C is the C, E, G, and B, right? If I think about it like that, and when I have a chord progression that goes by, and I'm going to play it a little bit out of time here, but you should still be able to tell what the chords are that are going by. Then based on those chord tones, you should know what's going on. So let me give you an example here. Right? And all I did was just play the chord tones. That's all I was working with. So when you take a look at playing over the 2-5-1 and you're thinking, well, how can I build more upon that? I like to see it as this. I have all the notes available to me that are in the key of C. If I want to specifically target those chords that are going by or make it so the changes are sounding, then I need to address the chord tones. I need to target those. So when you're practicing, in order to make the changes come out more in your playing, you need to take some time in your practice to just work on chord tones or isolating just like a particular tone, one of those chord tones like the roots, thirds, fifths, or sevenths. Like I said, this is not something that I came up with. This is something that has been talked about for a long time. And some even, take the approach of looking at it as more of you should be practicing your arpeggios and chord tones first before you start just trying to put a scale over top of the chord progression, because when you do that, sometimes it's just like making a blanket statement over top of the chords that are going by. I do think that it's good to use the scales, and in the case of a 2-5-1, to go through and just play. And I do this with my beginning student, those who are starting to improvise, especially in the jazz context. What I like to do is have them work on just playing the notes that are in the key of C over a 2-5-1, like I showed a minute ago. And just have them focus on trying to create some sort of a melody or melodic content. So when I look at bigger picture progression, like in a larger context of, let's say I took a song, and I've mentioned this one before in addressing like how to practice and stay within a tonal center. I mean, not a total center, but how to stay within a particular area of the fretboard. If I took a look at a tune like the bridge of Have You Met Miss Jones, key of B flat, then a 2-5-1 in G flat, then a 2-5-1 in D, and then a 2-5-1 in G flat, 2-5 back to the top, or the A section, back to the A section with F. I'm not thinking about every single, switch of the chord there as far as in a modal sense. What I'm thinking is, okay, so if I have B flat, okay, I can address those notes. And then I'm thinking about so I can address the progression just by thinking about target notes, right? So thinking back to that again, I'll just play through it. So hopefully that sounds out to your ears and you know where I'm coming from with that. You can hear that. So when it comes to thinking about this, like I said, this is my approach. Some of you may use modes in your playing, and that's perfectly fine. But I've never liked to think about the modes. If I do think about that, it's outside of the practice itself. It's usually when I'm thinking theoretically about it and I'm analyzing something and I use more of a derivative approach. I think about the big picture of where things are coming from, and then I isolate the chord tones. I think about the melodic statements that I could, potentially create in those situations. But I really don't like to think about dividing every single chord up and seeing it as modes. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do so. There's more videos coming in the future. I'm still interested in any topics that you guys might have dealing with guitar in general, things about improvisation, things about practice. I'm definitely interested in all those topics because I want to cover those things. Once again, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and check back next week for another Bob Ross and the Art of Guitar video. Thank you.